tonight's meeting so that we can post it on the web page. And I've been doing a little training with the Zoom system here, so I'm trying to play around with some of the bells and whistles. But in order, I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to the Utah Rotary eClub meeting for January 4th of 2017, first meeting of the year, and we're going to kick it off right with our speaker tonight.
Wonderful.
So we hope everybody had a great holiday season. Just for Tyler and Doug's benefit again, we're a very unique eClub as we meet online, but twice a year we do try to meet live. So we are, later after our speaker, we're going to discuss a little bit about possibly when we might be able to get together and have our live meeting. Somewhere in the Salt Lake area usually is a little centralized, and like to extend invitations if you join us to come on in and meet us in person. We're friendly. I'm going to ask Joyce if she would offer our thought/prayer tonight, and let you do that.
Okay. I was thinking that with the start of a new year, hopefully everybody started out on a positive note. And so I found this thought of the day, and it says, "A beautiful day begins with a beautiful mindset." When you wake up, take a second to think about what a privilege it is to simply be alive and healthy. The moment you start acting like life is a blessing, I assure you that it will start to feel like one. Time spent living is time worth appreciating. And I thought this was a decent quote to start the year.
That's great. Appreciate that.
Very good.
Very nice. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
also in way of logistics, just so you know, once in a while if you go to talk and you can't think anybody can hear you, it might be me. Sometimes when we get a little background noise, I mute a few of the phones or systems I see with the little speaker moving, so that that's the person making the noise usually. So I might mute you for a moment, but I'll bring you right back on. Or on your system, I think you can mute yourself. Thank you so much, Joyce. Joyce, would you also please give us a quick update on how you're doing, or how's your recovery?
Actually, I've been back to work now for 3 weeks. My recovery is actually going really well. I'm still going to outpatient physical therapy twice a week. And as long as there's snow on the ground, I have to walk outside with one crutch, but inside I don't have to use anything unless I feel my legs are fatigued or tired. But I'm actually doing very well. Thank you for asking.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Appreciate that. And the club members will be excited as well. Just had a little accident, so she's in recovery time from a broken leg, right?
Yeah. Surgery on both legs.
Yep, not fun. All right, well, I'm going to move our business and announcements to the end and go ahead and introduce our speaker tonight. Now, he sent a bio I included in our email today. Let me give you some highlights from that. You know, I'm going to deviate, Tyler, from your introduction you had here. I'll let everybody read it. I first met Tyler probably 6 years ago maybe, about when he started going to the National Speakers Association, and he quickly became one of the presidents of the Utah chapter of the National Speakers Association. When I think of Tyler, the word I think of is just passion. He puts emotion and passion into everything. He's a man of true conviction, and when he believes in something, it really touches him, and he has the ability to convey that emotion to others. So I was excited when I kind of last minute yesterday sent him a text, and he was available tonight. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Tyler, who's going to talk to us a little bit about embracing our twitch. Tyler Hurd.
Thanks, Larry.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, I met Larry. It was at the National Speakers Association. It probably was about 6 years ago, and we were both new, and we started talking, and we've been friends ever since. So you guys are lucky to know Larry, in my humble opinion. He's a fantastic guy. So, yeah, Larry said embrace the twitch. So let's just jump in and talk about that, I guess. So I started on this journey of becoming a professional speaker about, let's see, it was in the spring of 2009. I was taking a class at Westminster College called Lectures in Entrepreneurship. And the format of that class, it was a 7-week class, and we had 2 speakers come each week for 7 weeks. And then we had to write a paper on our favorite speaker. And so it wasn't a real tough class, but there was a lot of benefit. And they brought in some pretty big time entrepreneurs in the Utah area. And we even had one of the Kennedys come speak because he was in town promoting Big Brothers Big Sisters, and that was kind of cool to meet him and to learn from him. And the final speaker of the year was a guy by the name of Dan Clark. And Dan Clark, he lives in Utah, and he got up there and he started doing his song and dance. That's what I call it. And he was up there doing his thing, and about my junior year at Westminster, I decided that I needed to set some goals for where my career would go. And I had 3 goals. Number 1, always be able to provide for my family. Number 2, use my talents to do so. And number 3, make the world a better place because I was passing through it. And not in a cocky way, just be a good person, make good decisions, and bless the lives of those around you. And I was sitting there, and he started sharing a story about one moment in time and how it can change everything. And he started sharing the story, and right before he started sharing the story, he asked us, he said, "Do you really believe one moment in time can change everything?" And I'm sitting back there, and I'm typing as fast as I can, all the notes. He was about 15, 20 minutes into his speech. And he said that, and I looked up, and I was like, yeah, I do. And he started sharing this story, and it moved me to tears. And it was like the heavens opened, and God said, "Tyler, this is what you were born to do." And so me being the I don't know, some people might call it naive, I call it ambition. I walked up to him after his speech, and there were about 100 MBA students in this auditorium, and I went up and shook his hand and thanked him for coming, and I told him I wanted to be a professional speaker, as if he'd never heard that before. This guy, he was inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame in 2005. He's written over 20 books. He's been a best-selling author. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so I go up to him after, and he says, "Oh yeah, it's easy. Figure out your market, your message." And there was one other M, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's just that easy, right?" And he said, "Hey, I'm teaching a class at Westminster this fall. You ought to come take it. It's the first public speaking class I've ever taught." And so I worked it in as an elective for part of my MBA, and in a way I went. So in the meantime, I had become a trainer at Discover. And the reason I go into all of that is because I've been building this business, and in January of 2013, I had a pretty major life-changing experience. And Larry, I don't even know if you know about this.
No.
I started having really bad anxiety and panic attacks, and I didn't know what they were. And it was really scary to me. And I've just recently gotten to the point where I feel like I can talk about it, and it's not a shame thing. It's just part of my new life and all these different things. And it's worked wonders for me in looking at it that way. And so the reason I share all of that is because about a year ago, I developed this twitch in my left shoulder. And I thought, man, how can I speak and train if I have this twitch? And it made me want to crawl in a hole and die. And as that was happening, it was really, really hard for me. And I had to work through that. And I know that sounds like, so what? If that's your biggest problem in life, you got it pretty good, right? Well, to me, it was very real. Coupled with this anxiety I was working through, it started giving me really bad anxiety again. And so me being the guy I am and I like the life lessons and to share them and all those different things, I started working through it. And one of the things that happened was I called my little brother, and he's had a little bit of a twitch since he was about 12 years old. And he used to hop a little bit, and now it's kind of moved into his shoulders. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey bro, I'm really struggling here, man. What do I do?" And he said, "Embrace the twitch." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Who cares about that thing, man? So what?" He's like, "People love the twitch." And I started to think about that a lot more. And really, one of the big things I've learned from my Twitch is that I learned who my real friends are, and that's the people that I surround myself with, because they don't care about my Twitch. They care about me. And so I always say they don't care in a good way, because they care about me, not this imperfection. And one of the big things I learned from it was that it's my imperfections that make me beautiful and amazing, not the perfections, because people can't relate to this perfection that people try and put on. And so people actually love me more because of this imperfection. And me being the positive, optimistic guy I am, I just have to laugh sometimes. I was at Costco, and it was right before closing time, and there was this older gal, with her cart, and we were passing each other, and I was twitching a little bit worse that day for some reason. So let me show you what it kind of looks like. I kind of go like that when it's really bad and turn my head a little bit. And she was looking right at me, and she looked down at the floor like she's been taught her whole life, to be polite and not stare at people. And so she just looked at the floor and passed me, and I thought, oh, that poor lady, bless her heart. And so, I just had a laugh about that. And the other thing I always tell people is, I've never had so many friends in my life, because every time I'm at Walmart and I twitch a little bit, if there's a dude in the aisle, he gives me the dude nod, right? It's kind of that, hey man, what's up? And so I just do it back again, and I go on my way. And so I've made a lot of friends because of it as well. And so my question to all of you is, what's your Twitch? You may not be able to, it may not be visible like mine, but what's your proverbial Twitch? What's that one thing that makes you want to crawl in a hole and die? What's that one thing that scares you so bad that you don't want to leave your house? You need to face that, and you need to go do it. You need to embrace whatever that Twitch in your life is. And so one of the things I've learned with it as well is when I stop worrying about me and start worrying about everyone else, everything changes. And so in my keynote, my first principle is give more than you take. Life is like a bank, deposit, deposit, deposit. And then every once in a while, you need to make a withdrawal. And I've always considered myself a giver. And I know all of you are givers as well, being on this call tonight and what Rotary stands for. And you guys are far more amazing than me and give far more than I do. And every once in a while, you do need to make a withdrawal. And I found myself needing to make that withdrawal when all of this happened. I called on some friends and family, and they've just rallied around me and supported me to where I can get back to where I can give again. And so really the first principle is give more than you take. Life is like a bank, deposit, deposit, deposit. And then every once in a while, you make a withdrawal. And so I don't want to spend a ton of time on that, because you guys are really the gurus in that, not me. The second principle is one moment in time can change everything. And I really believe that. It sounds so cliche, but I had that profound experience that night at Westminster. I was a year into my MBA, and I came home and I told my wife, hey, I'm going to be a professional speaker. And she's like, okay. As one of the few things that she really supported in entrepreneurship. So that told me right there I was on the right track. And, I had to come to grips with I was going to talk for a living. And I met a guy, and actually at NSA, Larry, I met a guy, and he said, oh, you got your MBA and you're just going to throw it all away and become a speaker? And I think he realized that right after that, what he said, and he felt kind of bad. I was like, what are you talking about, man? Everything I've learned in college is going to apply to running my own company. So anyway, we had some fun with it. But that was a moment in time that changed everything for me. And I believe that as we go through life, if we're always worried about ourselves, we don't notice those one moments in time that can change everything for us. Let me give you an example of that. So a few years ago, I was working for Discover, and I was in their student loan department, and we were starting it up. We just bought about $4.2 billion worth of loans from Citibank, and it made us one of the top 3 student loan lenders in the country. And we had to create new systems. Everything was basically from the ground up. And it got pretty crazy for a while there, and I felt like I was on a treadmill that was unplugged from the wall with broken instruments, and I never knew if it was going to end, and it was going as fast as it could. I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, and and I was chasing the dream. I was chasing the dollar, right? I was white picket fence, and everything will be great, and you work your way to the top, and this and that. And I came home one day, and my oldest boy, he was probably about 5 years old then, and my daughter, who was 3, I opened the door, and they were so excited I was home, and they came running to the front door, and they just said, "Daddy's home," and they gave me this, this giant hug that only a little kid can give and touch your heart in that way. And I had that moment where I thought, you know what? I'm doing it wrong. My kids, they do not care how much money I make. They don't even know what that means. They don't care what I do for a living. They don't know what that means. All they want is time with their daddy. And it completely changed everything about the way I saw the world and how I lived my life. And I believe that as we let these one moments in time change everything for us, we become better for it, and we can serve others in a more effective way. The last thing is to leave no regrets by being willing to change. And I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, it's tough sometimes. I don't wake up every day and say, hey, let's change everything about my life. And most of the people I meet and train, this is how it goes. Okay, yesterday was a really, really good day. So if I can have the same day I had yesterday today, that's really good. And that means if I just keep replicating that day, then everything is good and nothing needs to change. And Dan Clark, he in a speech that night, he said, the dog will not move from the nail he is sitting on until it hurts bad enough. And I love that quote, because isn't that the truth? Until it hurts bad enough, how willing are we to change? I mean, my life was a mess, and it was unintentional. And I came home that night, and that moment changed everything. And so we have to be willing to leave no regrets by being willing to change. And it's tough sometimes. I mean, think about how hard it is to change your morning routine. Most of us are never going to climb Mount Everest. And I know that's a little disappointing. I'm an inspirational, motivational speaker, and I'm sitting here saying, look, the reality is most of us, we're never going to climb Mount Everest. That's not reality for so many people. But what is reality is we have these moments throughout the day where we have the opportunity to change, and we have to be willing to change if we want to be better. Let me give you an example of that. My grandpa, he's 85 years old, and he's one of my heroes. He was a wildly successful entrepreneur, and he gives service. He's a philanthropist. He's just this amazing human being. And he's one of my heroes. Well, when I was a kid, I used to go up and help him. He owns about 900 acres of land up Smithfield Canyon up in northern Utah. And I used to go up there when I was off track when I was a kid. And I went to year-round elementary school. So I'd go to school for 9 weeks and be off for 3. And I go spend those 2 or 3 weeks with him, and I'd pal around with Grandpa. And to me, it was exactly that. I was palling around. To him, he was, hanging out with his grandson and imparting wisdom, teaching me how to work hard, all these great things. Well, one of the things we were talking about was money. And he said, Tyler, good people with money do good things. Bad people with money do bad things. Money in and of itself is not wrong. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I want to be like Grandpa. So all these years later, here we are. And let me backtrack for a second. So another time I was up there with him, we were hauling sod from Idaho down to Logan. I said, Grandpa, what are you doing? Why are you helping this guy haul all this grass? And my grandpa, he said, Tyler, I lent this guy some money a while ago, and I don't know if he'll be able to repay me unless I help him out. And I thought, oh, okay. And he said, no one's ever taken advantage of me, and no one ever will. And I thought, oh, okay. That's good to know, Grandpa. I should live my life that way as well. Now, he didn't mean anything bad or harsh by it. It makes him sound so mean, but he's a fantastic guy. And he was helping this guy to help himself to be able to repay him. And I thought about that, and I went on with life. Well, here I am, a few years later, and I'm calling my grandpa saying, Grandpa, I'm struggling, man. I don't know what's going on. And my grandpa started talking to me, and he said, I'm a little worried about you. You seem a little like you're obsessed with money. So here my hero is, my grandpa, tells me that money's not bad. And now he's telling me I'm obsessed with it, and that's bad. And it was really interesting because I had to reflect on that, and I thought, man, here's one of my heroes, and he's correcting me. Well, fast forward a couple more years, I'm sitting in his living room a few months ago, and I said, Grandpa, whatever happened with your land? You see, my grandpa bought all of this land from my grandma's brothers and sisters, except one. And they never divided up their sixth of the land. And in the meantime, my grandpa, after all these years, he had developed a campground. He had put in a new bridge across the creek. He had built a hay shed, and he rents out that land to farmers. And he has just put so much time and money into this thing. Well, when all this was happening years ago, I didn't know this, but some of the family had a little bit of resentment toward my grandpa because they thought he was trying to buy all this land from them and push them out from their family land and heritage and all these things. And so all these years later, his estate planner says, you need to figure this out before you die, or it's going to be a mess. Well, the part of the family wanted, the best land, the campground, the land that the hay shed's on, that's been farmed, all these things. And my grandpa bought all this land because it was important to his father-in-law that all of these things would stay intact. So my grandpa has this decision at 85 years old. And I said, Grandpa, what happened? And he's literally sitting on top of his mountain. He literally owns a mountain. And he's sitting on top of this mountain, and he called my grandma, and he was just in tears. He was just bawling. And he said, and my grandma thought something had gone terribly wrong. And my grandpa said, I don't know what to do. My grandma said, well, what do you mean? And he said, my intention was never to rip this family apart. And I've put so much time and money and effort into this land and, these family reunions, all these things. And I don't want this to rip the family apart. And I said, so what did you decide, Grandpa? And he said, I gave them the land. All the best land. It's theirs. And I said, well, Grandpa, are they going to pay you for it? And he said, they can't pay me for it. I said, but Grandpa, no one takes advantage of you. And he sat there for a second, and he said, Tyler, this land is way more important to our family than any amount of money I could ever put into it or time developing that land. And I sat back and I thought, wow, leave no regrets by being willing to change. This is an 85-year-old man, and he's still willing to learn and grow and change for the sake of what's important to him, for his family values, for his ethics, his moral compass. He's willing to change. He's willing to make a difference and to put all of those things he's learned aside for something better. And that was, of course, for me, another one moment in time that changed everything. And so I really believe that if we give more than we take, that we let these one moments in time change everything for us, and that we leave no regrets by being willing to change, we'll be able to overcome our twitches, whatever they may be, and we'll be able to serve the world a lot better and be able to fulfill our lives and what we were put on this earth to do. And so that's my message tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. Larry, do we have some time for questions if anyone has any?
I do believe so. So I think everybody's unmuted. So if anybody has a question. I've got the first question, Tyler. Is your grandpa still living, Logan?
No. So they actually, about 10 years ago, they moved down to South Mountain, just on the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. He still owns that land, but he sold his house up there and moved down here to be closer to the rest of the family. He told me they had about 10 years left in them before they died, and they wanted to be able to come to all the family events. His name's Paul.
Paul Hurd?
Yeah, Paul Hurd.
Awesome. Cool. Anybody else have a question for Tyler?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment for Tyler. Thanks for your willingness to share from your soul. I've always been impressed as I've listened to you, Tyler, over the last years. How genuine and straightforward and just open you are to share your heart and share your mind.
Well, thank you, Doug.
I
That means
believe.
a lot.
Is your grandfather still alive?
Yeah, he is. Him and my grandma are both. They're alive and well.
And you say they're, and if they were 85 in the story, how old are they now?
They just turned. Let's see, they're about to turn 86.
Okay, so all this has just happened recently, huh?
Yeah, this was working all of that out with the land and everything was just this last year.
What a wonderful story! What a wonderful story!
Thank you, Doug.
Look, this is Brent. It's like, you know, if everyone's family had a happy ending like that, the world would be a different place.
Yeah, it really would, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
Wonderful, wonderful information. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you.
well, on that note, which is partly why I think a lot of us are in Rotary, is that opportunity to serve. So Doug is a guest and Tyler is a guest and our speaker tonight. We always like to extend the invitation that to join us in Rotary. We can talk about the particulars, but here, this is how we hold our meetings, and then we look for service locally and around the world. And in fact, my proposal tonight, Brent and Joyce, I guess, as our official members, you'll have to be the ones to determine whether we should do this. I'd like to give each of the remaining 6 months of my term a emphasis. And this month of January, I'm going to call it RAK January, RAK, which stands for Random Act of Kindness. And my challenge is to every member of the club to do a random act of kindness throughout the month. And if we want to share with the meetings on what we've done, sometimes we do a random act of kindness and we leave it as a random act of kindness and don't need to share it. But that's my challenge. Any thoughts, Joyce and Brent?
Challenge.
I think that's
What's that?
That sounds great, Larry. I'm good to go.
Good. Well, I'll
I
put that
think
in.
that's a great idea, Larry.
And so we'll start out January at that. Then hopefully we can find some good service projects to put in the remaining 5 months, and each month do some type of a service project for locally or internationally, or however we decide to do that.
We will do it, and we will make you look good, Larry.
Well, my intention's more to make you feel good than me look good, because I think I'm beyond that.
Larry already looks good, let's be honest.
So, I don't know if I feel prompted to share this or not, but 2 things. I've made it a tradition that every year on my birthday, I send my mom and dad a bouquet of flowers. And so it's happened, I don't know, for the past 15, maybe 20 years I've done it. And, it's just a gesture of gratitude to my parents. And like this time when I called the florist and I was telling her what to write on the card and kind of what was happening, she stopped for a minute and just said, wow, more people need to reverse this. So just those random acts of kindness, we never know. What's the old Chinese proverb? You can't give flowers without getting a little bit of the scent on your own hand. So,
Absolutely.
so that's what it is. So as far as other news and whatnot, with not quite all the members here or a majority, I'm going to pass on some of it. We're going to discuss dues and whatnot. Those will be coming up. Just for Doug, I've talked to you a little bit about dues. Our club dues are $75 a quarter, or $300 for the year is club dues, and that goes Rotary International. And then all of us try and donate $100 extra a year towards the Rotary Foundation. Tyler, the Rotary Foundation is the foundation that's got the money that is helping eradicate polio in the world.
Oh, okay. I know Devin's been really involved in that.
Devin's hugely involved with that. The Gary Gates Foundation has matched dollar for dollar, or 2 for 1, I think it is, to help eradicate polio in the world. And we're within the next 5 years, we'll have polio gone for sure.
Yep.
So Brent and Joyce, what I'm going to throw down a challenge too is to be thinking of some fundraising ideas and some service opportunities for the coming months.
Okay, we will do that.
Are either of you considering the Mexico trip?
That's in March, correct?
Yeah.
I've had some preliminary talks with Kelly about that, but we haven't got down to the brass tracks. But
Yeah.
it's actually funny that you would mention that, because I saw something from Kelly today, which was sent a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, wow, March is coming up pretty good, so we'll see what we can do. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll need to make some decisions on that. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull it together. So for Doug and Tyler, one of the things we're considering doing is going down to Puerto Penasco, Mexico, and help build some school or do some service projects for the people in the area. There's a couple of Rotary clubs that go down every year, and we're going to jump on board with them.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, the way we wrap up every meeting is we go over what's called the four-way test. I've got on my Rotary mug here. Tyler, the only one can see this. The back of my Rotary mug carries the four-way test. So I'll share that with the group as we ponder this and think about what it is to be a Rotarian and where we might serve and perform that random act of kindness. So the Rotarians, we live by a four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? So as we look at our businesses and our lives and doing what we do, that's kind of the four-way test we live by as Rotarians to make it happen. And I shared a couple of weeks ago when I was in the Bahamas, I bumped into a Rotarian on the street, had his shirt on, Rotary, and then I went to Rotary meeting, and at the end of the day, I'd ridden the bus down there, and at the end of the meeting, one of the Rotarians was visiting as well, walked over to me and said, hey, can I give you a ride back to your resort? So he drove me back about 45 minutes to my resort, gave me a ride. But the funny thing is 3 days later, Diane and I were flying out of the airport, international airport there in the Bahamas, and here's this guy sitting on one of the chairs. He's flying up to D.C. to see his kids, and he looked at me and goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just walked by. I was just thinking about you, and just sat there. Just, there's
Cool.
Internationally, Rotary, you have an instant connection and friendship with people, so it's fabulous.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate Tyler and taking time and sharing your message, and may we all go out and embrace our twitches.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, make it a great week.
So much,
Everybody.
Larry and Tyler, everyone. Wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.